across the World Wide Web on your mobile device and social media platforms. This is Jambo Radio, www.jamboradio.co.uk. We're multilingual, we're conversational, in the languages you best understand. We are Jambo Radio, inspiring transformation.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Moments with Sade and Enoch, and I've got with me
Sade, why are you smiling though?
and
Inonge.
and
I'm laughing.
I am Enoch in the Sade and Enoch. I'm just excited. I'm just excited to see you. But I'm trying to switch it such that Inonge gives us a chatty.
Okay.
Accent.
Happy side.
Happy.
Because you can get very serious and intense, eh?
Indeed.
Right.
So, on today's show, we'll be talking about making an impact back home, and before we continue that, why not join the conversation? You can call us on 0141 530 2787, or you can send us a WhatsApp message or voice note on 074 5990 6822.
And if you're on social media, you can also message us on Facebook at Jambo Radio Scotland, on Twitter at Jambo Radio 1, and on Instagram at jamboradio.scotland.
You can also email us. I mean, if all those options are not enough, you can also email us at info@jamboradio.co.uk. Send us your comments. We'd like to hear your contribution or to the subject. The subject today, as I said, is making an impact back home. If you haven't yet, you can also download our app, Jambo Radio app. We are on the Apple App Store. And we are on
both Apple
Google,
and Android.
Yeah, we're on Apple and Android. Oh Christ! I've been up for 13 hours. So there are millions of Africans in the diaspora. I was trying to do some research to try and understand the numbers, and they said 170. So when I dug into that, I was thinking 170 seems like a lot, but then they were counting Brazilians and so they were counting the sort of the slave era folks. But if you remove that, there are millions of Africans in the diaspora from Zambia, Nigeria, Ghana, and we're everywhere. And I think that has even increased a lot recently with globalization and talent moving based on with the rise of tech. We've seen a lot of Africans leave Africa for the West just because their talent is needed. They move. And you are one of those people. I am one of them, and you are Sade. But then when we get into the West or wherever it is we're going to, or even to the Middle East, there's now a big influx into the Middle East as well. We still get that longing or that sort of connection to home. And sometimes you start getting that feeling around, oh, there's this thing they do where I am now. Can I replicate it back home? It's a good idea. It's easy to just, replicate. And sometimes we come into our host country and then we look back home and we see an ill, something that can be fixed, something that isn't right. And we set about to try as much as possible to wrong that ill. And I think that sort of lines up with what you do, Inonge. So,
that was quite an intro.
So it is an intro, and so today we are speaking with you, Inonge. You founded the charity called Restored Hope Zambia.
Yep.
And how long has that been going now?
It's about 3 years old.
About 3 years old.
Up to 3 years old now.
Fantastic. Yeah. And you've been making a lot of impact with that. So hopefully over the next 45 minutes, we'll get to learn about what you're doing at Restored Hope Africa, some of the challenges you faced, and maybe some of the success stories you've had. And also, what we also want to get out of this is for our listeners that are looking to do something back home as well, to sort of learn from you, sort of hear your story, and hopefully be inspired to go start. Because sometimes we've got amazing ideas, but we're so bogged down with all the details. We don't know where to start, and maybe you can sort of share your journey around how you sort of got started and all that.
But so before all of that, before we get into the juicy stuff, so Inonge, Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes,
Inonge.
Inonge, yes,
Inonge.
yeah.
Okay. So Inonge, just very quickly, can you tell us who Inonge is without necessarily talking about work, what you do? Just who is Inonge? I'm sure our listeners would love to know.
Yes. So I'm Zambian. I'm a Christian. I'm passionate about justice, and I love sport.
Oh, okay.
That is. Did you prepare? By the way, we didn't share this question with Inonge before.
I promise I didn't.
Did you prepare for that? Or did you hack into my computer? That was succinct.
Very, very.
You know, usually I would be speaking for 10 minutes. So this
So that, like,
I've been
bang,
training
bang,
my brain
bang,
to
bang.
be like, stop
Okay.
talking. It's enough. They don't need to know all of that. So
Okay.
yeah, there you go. So I'm
Fantastic.
practicing on you.
Fantastic.
Alright,
I
okay.
love it. And you know, as I always say, I'm always interested in names and their meanings, especially, you know, our names. So, you know, your name is Inonge. What does it mean? Where does it come from? If it has a meaning.
It does. The meaning, lol. So, so I'm Lozi by tribe. So that's one of the tribes in Zambia on the western side.
Is that one of the major or minor tribes?
Yes. So there's 72 tribes in Zambia. And
72.
72.
So
Yeah.
are those 72 languages?
Yes,
Wow,
7 main
okay.
ones though. So
Yeah.
you have like 7 ones which dominate certain
Yeah.
provinces.
Okay.
So so Lozi is one of the 7 western province, and in Lozi, Inonge comes from Linonge, which means somebody who complains a lot. So, but
Right.
can I just want to clarify. So it's one of those common names in Zambia where you just name your kid like, oh, Inonge. So like I could go anywhere in the world and meet a Zambian and say my name, and from my name they could tell I'm Zambian and my
Wow.
tribe. That's how common it is. So it's not that parents were thinking this baby is giving complaining vibes,
Yeah.
so we'll call her Inonge. It was just like, this is a Lozi name. My mom or grandmother or whatever was called Inonge, and then later on my dad discovered that that's what the name meant. Just when I was becoming a teenager and becoming very like mouthy. So it's like, by the way, your name means somebody who complains a lot.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And what's your middle name if you don't mind us
Pumulo.
asking? Okay.
Pumulo.
How do you spell that?
Pumulo. Pumulo.
Pumulo.
Yeah.
Pumulo.
How it sounds. Yeah.
Pumulo. Yeah,
that's
that's
right.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does
Zambian
that,
names are easy like that.
yeah, I love it. I love it. And does it have a meaning?
It does, but I can't remember now because I very rarely use it. I didn't know I had that name
All right.
until I
You're
got my
about to get
first
passport.
passport. Yeah. I was like, who's Pumulo? So I'm like, that's you.
In case you get out of Inonge, you can always switch to Pumulo.
Yeah, you can always switch it up. So I'm just Inonge P Siluka, and then the P is just there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So Inonge, tell us a bit about Restored Up Zambia. You know, we've had this chat before on one of our many adventures. So, you know, tell us about it, and more importantly, how did you get started?
Yeah. So Restored Up Zambia is an organization I started about 3 years ago to tackle abuse, particularly clergy abuse. So that's abuse in the church by like church leaders in Zambia. So the vision is, the idea is to restore hope. That's why it's called Restored Up Zambia. So the idea is to restore hope to those who have been abused in the church. We provide counseling, legal support, and also just try to raise awareness. It's not a topic that people find easy to talk about or want to talk about. And so abuse happens behind closed doors. People don't know what to do. Survivors have nowhere to go. And so that was what I wanted to create. Somewhere where they could go, somewhere where somebody could say, you know, actually, I'm going to be listened to. Somebody cares about my story, and I matter. So the vision and how that came about was from a conversation, actually. I was trying to help some friends of mine who they themselves had been abused by their pastor, and my background is legal studies as well. So
And your friends are in the UK or
in
back?
Zambia.
combination,
Okay.
yeah. But we knew each other growing up. I studied law at university, so anytime I see an injustice, my mind always goes to like, right, who's going to jail, right? So, like people are like, oh, if you forget, I'm like, who is going to jail?
Yeah, we forgive
Like,
them,
yeah.
but they need to go to jail.
After they're in jail, then, you know, but also I'm not Jesus, so like he'll do the forgiving you, you're going to jail. So yeah, so I'm really, really passionate about justice, and so that's what I tried to do. And it just didn't really work out because of some of the reasons that I started Restored Hope Zambia, like the cultural issues in the church, like how we elevate leaders and put them on platforms, the beyond criticism, don't say anything because you destroy the church, like all these reasons which sound on the face of it like plausible, believe it or not, but actually when you dig deeper, you're like, hang on, that's messed up. So it was a conversation I had after all this had happened, and I say to her, okay, what now? Like, what do you want to do, or what do you wish could have been done better in this situation? And she said, I wish there was an organization, or I wish these people could understand how this has impacted me. Because a lot of people are like, this happened a long time ago, move on.
Forget
like,
about
why have you
it.
not moved on? Yeah. So, like, not understanding the trauma of abuse and how that follows you for a very long time. So she was like, I wish they could understand that. I wish the church could understand the role that they played in actually contributing to this by being silent. And I wish there was access to like counseling just to deal with all of this, because I think if I had that earlier, it would have really helped me and really helped with a lot of stuff that I was dealing with. So my head was like, okay, so I'm starting that organization. Because she was like, I wish this thing happened. I was like, I'm going to make it happen. Okay. So I'm quite impulsive. I'm a dangerous person to share ideas with. I will implement them effective immediately. So, I mean, that conversation was maybe around September, like middle of lockdown.
In
and 2021. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So that conversation was around September. By December, I had a constitution for the charity, and we were registering. And by January, we were submitting all of that. By April, the charity was registered in Zambia. By May, it was registered in Scotland. So that's how quickly things moved from my brain to the...
You're my kind of person. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
do
Go
it.
for it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So-
Not talk.
Yep.
And from everything you said, it sounds like a lot. And you also said you're a lawyer. So are you currently... What's your job currently? Are you practicing?
No, I tapped
Okay.
out. I mean, I did the law school, and then I was like, bye. Like, as soon as I
Okay.
graduate, I didn't actually, because when you do your law degree, you need to do a diploma in legal, so you
Yes.
can actually, I never actually did that.
Okay.
So I liked the learning and law itself, but then I know what like a real life law career looks like, and it's not as glamorous as Suits or like all these programs that you see. It is paperwork and it is 10 p.m. finishes, and I'm just not about that life. Like, I like having a life and doing things. So that was one thing that I was like, I don't actually want to go into practicing in that way. And also, knowing my own personality, I would be attracted to like human rights law or like criminal law.
Okay.
And with those aspects of law, you actually have to believe like it's part of the justice system. You can't pick and choose like, oh, I'm not gonna take that case on. I'm not gonna. So I can't handle that emotionally. I can't defend people but you have to, because everybody's entitled to a fair trial. So I just knew that I can't do that.
Isn't for me.
There's people that can do that. I'm like, good on you, but like, yeah, not me. So I knew I was always gonna be like something charity sector or related in that way, and that's sort of how I've used some of those skills. So I actually work for a cancer charity at the moment.
Okay. I was just going to ask that.
Yeah.
So is it just Restored Hope? So you currently work
Yeah.
for... Okay.
So the Restored Hope is like the thing I do in my free time.
Okay.
Side of
It's
his
a
life.
How do you juggle everything? How do you...
I don't think I do, to be honest. It's not a solution. It's not a long-term solution. Because I'm basically functioning as a founder and the director of the charity in a part-time capacity outside of work. But in an ideal universe, I would like to move us on from that kind of founder-led phase. Get somebody else in who can do basically what I'm doing full-time and do it well. So there is that, it's for founders, businesses, anything. There is that period where you're just like wearing 10 million caps. So I'm in that phase, and I'm just like, but it's not sustainable. So I love my job, like working with cancer charity, but I feel like my headspace is occupied by Restored Hope Zambia and everything that's going on, just because of the type of work it is. And it's just a lot of work. Doing, we'll talk about this in a minute, but like doing stuff in Zambia and learning the different mindset of how people work and different systems and all of that. That's been a roller coaster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Indeed,
Fantastic.
I can
And so,
imagine.
I mean, I think for these things to work, really, you need to be passionate about it. I mean, it's not an exciting thing to be doing, but you're passionate about justice, and that's how you sort of go into that. So I've got 2 questions for you, just for me and Sade, and for our listeners, for context. So paint a picture for us about Zambia. So how many millions of people are there?
Yeah,
Give or
about
take?
18, maybe just under 20 million.
Just under 20 million,
population.
Okay. And it's a majority Christian country.
Yes, very, very, like we've got Christian country in our constitution. Like when politicians want votes, they pretend
They go
to
to
be
the church.
Christian. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretend to be, like, that's the best way I can put it. It's like
Okay.
Okay.
they'll have a photo where they're like praying,
Okay.
and you know, the right angle, like it's nuts.
Okay. So from what you're saying, then it sounds like these you will have superstar pastors and superstar church leaders.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. It's just for us to understand the
The
context
context.
in
Yeah.
which all this is happening.
Yeah.
So what's the why? You must have heard a lot of people complain about a lot of things. Why did you decide to do something about this? Is there a story behind it? Is there something personal, or is there something? What's the driving force?
So it is the personal story that I shared, where I think I saw firsthand the devastating impact that abuse in the church can have on people. Of course, abuse is a huge problem in most African countries, Zambia included. When it happens in the church, there's an extra layer of impact, because when you're in the church, that's the place you think you're going to be safe, right? That's your refuge. That's where you're most vulnerable. Right? So it's like that layer of somebody has taken advantage of that and used spirituality. Usually they've used the Bible, a Bible verse, prayer. A church that may have used the position of power as a man of God. So those things actually end up potentially, if you're a person of faith, destroying your own faith, your relationship with God. You usually lose your community. So remember, this is maybe somebody who the church is important to them. This is where they find refuge and hope. They usually lose that community because people side with the perpetrator, the abuser, the pastor. So you've lost your community. You know, the things that you treasure, value, the word of God, prayer, have been the things that have maybe been used to manipulate you and to take advantage of you, and even maybe to silence you from speaking up about it. So that additional layer of spiritual abuse and the spiritual impact of abuse, in addition to the trauma of abuse itself, it's like a million things. So for me, that's what came out of that when I was speaking with my friends, is like, they struggled so much with the whole church thing for like years, and they didn't want to. They wished they could, be the joyous person and sing songs to God and worship and all of that, but they just couldn't emotionally connect, because they always associated that with the darkest moments of their life. So for me, because I'm a Christian, I'm a firm believer in making a difference with whatever is closest to home, right? Because it's easy to be like, I'm going to do the justice thing over here. But okay, what are you going to do when abuse happens in your own home, in your church? You should always be willing to...
Charity begins at home.
It begins at home. So I'm like, okay, I'm a Christian. I'm still part of a church. This thing is happening in the church. I'm Zambian. That's as close as you're going to get to, doing something about a situation that's close to home. And also, I think it's very difficult, for people outside of the church to tackle this effectively, because if they speak, they'll just get accused of being from the devil. It's spiritual warfare. Nobody takes them seriously. Like all sorts of excuses, they're just here to attack us. They're just here to attack the church. But because
and turn everyone against.
Exactly. And then it's like, don't listen to them. They might genuinely be raising proper concerns, of don't listen to them because they're not one of us. So because I'm very active in my Christian faith, if somebody said, oh, you're just attacking the church, the evidence against that is well, clearly not. So it's I've got this platform, I talk about the Bible and theology and things like that. So if I speak about this, my voice lends more authority, because I'm speaking from within. I'm pointing at things and being by the way, that's messed up and here's why. So I'm able to tackle some of these problems using the language of the people there. So when they throw Bible verses at me, I throw 10 back at them. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you need to do. You sort of need to get within the context and understand what's happening in the context, and then use that very language to then challenge that. Because if you're coming from outside, it's not as effective. So that's
I am picking up the Scottish
Yeah.
accent. I'm picking it up now.
It's coming up. Talking faster as well, man. Boom, 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 boom.
So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, I don't know, like I can't just help but think that you would have some people that definitely don't like what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word enemies, but
Yeah.
you get what I mean? Like, oh, like you're attacking the church, you're attacking men of God. You
Yeah.
know, people quickly, just like you said, take to that side of you don't touch the men of God, you don't talk about them. So how do you respond to this? How do you take this? Like, is it something you're used to? That's one. But before you answer that, very quickly, you talked about theology. So did you go to a school, like a
Bible
theology
school.
school? Bible
Yes,
school?
yeah, I
you?
did, yeah. So after I studied, after I graduated from law, I
Okay.
did some sort of ministry training and Bible training as well.
Just because you wanted, or because
Yes,
of what
yeah,
you're doing?
Yeah,
Ah,
just
you
because I
know
was
that.
at the time. So this was unrelated. Like, Restored Up Zambia was not a concept in my head. Like
Okay.
4 years ago, like
Okay,
at all. Like it
okay.
just sort of
Okay.
was very sudden. So I didn't know that those things were going to be relevant actually at the time. I was just doing things because do the
Okay.
next thing, you know, you like something, you do it. And then
Okay.
it has somehow become really, really relevant to the work that I
Alright.
do, because I'm able to like look at things from the legal side, socioeconomic, and also the theological side of things.
I'm beginning
so-
to think about all the conversations we've had, to think, were they righteous enough?
In what
So all the
How do you
questions
mean?
by someone, now they're saying a proper Christian sister.
Oh,
I'm
right,
thinking,
your previous
do I,
laid
I'm sure he must have judged me like, oh, he's
Yeah.
going.
He's going to hell. Anyway, so pushback.
Yeah, pushback.
Yeah.
Not as much as I thought there would be, but
Okay.
probably because we're still quite in our infancy. So like, you know, the bigger we grow, probably that's going to come. The pushback that I've got is usually easily challenged by just asking questions. You know, when people say stuff and they make blanket statements, it's helpful to just be like, sorry, what do you mean by that? So if somebody says you are destroying the church, what like, okay, what do you mean by destroying the church? How am I going to destroy the church, which by the way Jesus Christ is the one who built, by, you know, doing justice? And then they'll answer, oh, because, you know, and they'll maybe throw half a Bible verse.
Half a Bible verse.
Half a Bible verse. As in, they
just
don't even
the
know
bits.
what they're.
Yeah.
You don't even know what they're saying. So then you start to like get into the mindset of like, where are they coming from and what is their understanding of justice and vulnerable. And this is what I meant by like bringing the theology. If a person is a Christian, or they say they are, I will literally be like, by the way, this is something Jesus said, right? So I'll actually like bring in that faith aspect and be like, what you're saying or the perspective you're coming from is actually contrary to what you say you believe, and this is why. And when I've done that, because it's easy to be like, how dare you, you know what I mean, like just attack, like, why are you not on board with this? But actually education is about listening. What are they saying? Why are they saying what they're saying? And then what is their worldview? Where are they at? And meeting them where they're at. So I'll then usually then be like, this Bible verse says this Bible verse says this. And most times when I've done that, people have come around and be like, okay, I see what you mean.
Okay.
Because usually they're not thinking about the victim. They're just thinking about, this person helped me. And it's like, okay, you're thinking about you. What about the other person? What about them? How do you think they feel? What do you think it's like for them to walk into this place when people say things like this or like that? So just giving them a different perspective. What do you think Jesus would say to this person? Do you think they would be like, how dare you, don't say anything? You know what I mean? And suddenly people go, oh, okay. Yeah. So people usually say stuff without thinking. They're just repeating what they've heard. Biblical illiteracy is really bad in many parts of Zambia. So people quote what the man of God or pastor told them, and they've never really thought about the impact of those words or where those words are coming from. So I think education, like, you have to be really patient because you hear all sorts of stuff, and you just have to like, don't take it personally, take a step back, listen, and then respond to those accusations or for lack of a better word.
Fantastic. So I've been on your website on Restored Up. I mean, not inongesiluka.com, on your charity's website, and it's actually well built. So well done for that.
Thank you.
So it seems you've got, you know, to set this up, it's been running for 3 years. I'm guessing you've got some some team members down in Zambia.
Yes.
And so you've got this operation going. How did you develop yourself to that point? And also, so that's the first one. And the second one is, you know how you were having that connection with your friends and then you went, boom, I'm doing this. Was that you and some people saying, boom, we're doing this? Or was that just you? Or was it a few of you and then people dropped off along the way and then you were like, oh, it's just me now?
Let me answer that one first. So it was just me, but with different conversations. So that's, if somebody is thinking of starting something, that's probably what I'd recommend, is just talk to people, because you might have an idea that you think is going to work on the ground, and then you go, wherever, Zambia, and it's just not going to work. If you've got Western mindset to it, right?
But to work in that format.
I had loads, like, I know the time frame was quite short from idea to implementation, but within those, like, maybe even 50 if I could count conversations. So I was speaking to survivors, not just people I knew, like not just church, like general, like what are some of the challenges you face? What do you think needs to be done? And just listening,
do they all
absorbing.
Come to you? Where do you find them?
Yeah, so a mixture. So usually it's when we're doing community engagements. When we do community engagements, we maybe do like defining abuse. So sometimes people don't realize what they've experienced as abuse, because you've got financial abuse, you've got spiritual abuse, then you've got sexual abuse. So when you explain, like, oh, by the way, if somebody says they're a man of God and they're praying for you and they're touching your breast, that is sexual assault. They might not have, because of the spiritual context, it's just like, oh, this
They've
is
not
just
thought about it.
This is just what happens in this context. So when we do those things, then people are like, oh, actually, I think that I experienced that, or I know somebody who did. So that's where most of our engagements come from for survivors.
Community
engagement. So you'd go to like a usually rural area, and you do a workshop with women or youth, and then the focus is on like defining abuse, or and it's very interactive. So we get them to do scenarios and things like that, and we get them to see.
How do you get them to open up? Because like you said, it's a very sensitive topic.
Yeah, I've been surprised actually. I thought people would be closed up, but it's like people are ready to talk about it. They're just looking for an opportunity. So that's surprised me actually. I thought people would be like, no, we're not talking about it. Obviously they're not going to all share, but usually when you do the scenarios, they're like, yes, and then they start the floodgates like open. So we know, that's how we know like there's so many of this, because just one engagement, maybe you have 12 women, you have at least 3 people saying like that's how high the numbers are, and that's just 12 women in one very small community in a small district, and you know what I mean. So it's like how many more are just in silence, like or don't know that what they suffered. So what was your other question? Sorry.
It's around your, I guess, what you call your management skills, how you put it all together. How did you put all that together? Did you have to learn, or was that just I'll let you?
A combination. So I've just realized my management style is I'm a doer, so I lead by doing. And I've had to learn, because when you're running an organization, you have to think big picture, you have to look at strategy, and I hate that stuff. Like it's not me, it's not my skill set. So I actually had to find people to plug my skill set gaps, if that makes sense. So when I was creating, so we've got Restored Up Zambia, which is a Zambian charity. We actually have a partner Scottish charity, so I had to set up under the Scottish charity regulator. So we also have separate trustees in Scotland for the Scottish charity, mainly focused on fundraising. So what kind of skill set do I need, and what kind of people do I want? So you're thinking of character, but you're also thinking of skill, because sometimes you can lean one or the other. You're like, okay, let me get the character bit, but if they don't know what they're doing, disaster. Or you get the skills, but if their character's poor or they're not passionate about the cause, also disaster. So I was trying to think, what type of personalities do I want? You want people who can chat, because when you're a founder, everybody's like, woohoo, yes, queen. Like people just want to hype you up. So you want people who can challenge you, who can tell you no. So actually, personality-wise, I was looking for people who would be like, no, Inonge, we're not doing that. So that's healthy, like leadership. And just find, look, what kind of skill set do I want? Maybe like legal mind, maybe I want an HR mind, business type mind. I want somebody maybe with lived experience. You're trying to think of, what do you do? And then what does a board do? Or what does leadership do? And then try and get a combination of those. So that's how I put my boards together on both ends, and just, I knew some of them, but some were recommended to me. I was going to say that,
how do you find them?
For you to even think to do that, how did you even think to do that?
She thought to do that. That's the answer.
So I had lots of different conversations actually with people, and just in terms of like, okay, how should we create this board? I remember speaking to, I'll just mention her actually, Bayile, she's co-founder, founder of Decomai. So just having conversations of like, what do you think I should be thinking about here? And Google. So Google and like conversations. So
and this
loads
Chat
of this.
GPT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I wish I had that. I don't think that it wasn't in yet.
It wasn't there.
So. Yeah, just learning that way. I've learned so much more though just doing it about myself and my leadership style. So I just say there I'm a doer. I didn't realize how much that affects, running a charity, because you can't do anything then at that point. I want to do the work, but now I have to think of HR and I have to, I should come to you for for advice, Sade. But I have to think of all these other things, and I'm just like, oh wow. So I think an important aspect of that leadership style that I think I've learned to be more is be vulnerable about what I'm good at and what I'm not. Because when you're a founder, people see you as invincible. They think you can do everything, and if you don't tell them that you can't and you need help, you burn out, or you just do stuff badly because people think you have all the skill set to do it. So I've become more vulnerable and just being open, which in Africa is, it's like, you have to be the boss. You have to show that you're good at everything. But I'll actually say to team members, I don't know enough about community engagement, actually. I've got a legal mind. I do legal research. I don't know how to do social science. How do you do that? And that's counterculture in that context, because everybody wants to be the main man and pretend they know what they're doing. So like pretending, like winging it, I wouldn't recommend. I would not recommend.
Fantastic. And just thanks, Inonge. And before we continue, let me just remind our listeners that you can join the conversation. You can send in comments and or contribution. Join in the conversation by giving us a call. We are on 0141 530 2787, or you can send us a WhatsApp, a voice note as well on 0745 990 6822.
And if you're on social media, you can also message us on Facebook at Jambo Radio Scotland, on Twitter at Jambo Radio 1, and on Instagram at Jambo Radio jamboradio.scotland. I was going to say .co.uk there. You can also email us on info@jamboradio.co.uk. And Enoch, over to you. So I can see you can't wait to ask the next question.
Yeah. And
it's like finish up. Yeah, that's why I'm calling Instagram.co.uk, because it's like, come on. Okay, all right.
So we're chatting before we went live. You said you've been in Scotland
19 years, yeah, since
19
I was
years.
14. The years have merged, something like that.
Yeah, for 19 years. So it's interesting that you still have that sort of strong connection to Zambia.
Yeah.
How? Is that through your parents, or is that just you intentionally still having that connection, still having that love for the motherland?
I think that comes more naturally. It depends, because you could have different siblings and their connections to the motherland might be different, but I've just always, I feel like, when people ask me, I wouldn't necessarily always say that I'm British, although I've got a British passport. I would say I'm Zambian. So like that is how I see myself. And I think because when I moved, although I was a teenager, I had spent quite an intense formative years in Zambia. I was in boarding school before I moved here, actually. Ooh. So now the dreams I have, I don't even dream, like if I'm dreaming about like stuff back when, it's always boarding school. I'm always having nightmares. I've got a test or something, and I'm just like, I don't dream about high school in the UK. It's always boarding school. I've got a test and I'm like, it's okay, you're grown, you've got a job, you don't have to do exams. So
boarding school do that to you?
I feel probably traumatized, man. So I think I've always just like, I just have that love. Like, I feel like I've got two homes, and none of them fully feel home sometimes, because when I go to Zambia, people are like, oh, you've got an accent, you're not from around here. And when I'm here, people are like, you've got an accent, where are you from? So like, I'm like, where is home?
This is home. You can be yourself here.
Wherever I'm
in
home.
the studio.
Do you know what? I will say I'm very much at home, as you can see, because I'm like talking nonstop. I'm feeling very, very much at home. But yeah, no, I've always had that connection, and I've always wanted to do something, make a difference in some way, whatever that looked like. So if I hadn't done this, I would have done something else in that regard. So I love Zambia, and I think Zambia has a lot of potential. It's a beautiful country, and I want to keep that connection going however I can.
My dream is to visit all African countries. So I've visited Europe more than I've visited Africa, and I think that probably applies to most Africans.
Same
in
applies
Europe.
to me.
It's a nightmare trying to travel.
It's
through
easy.
Africa.
Yeah, it's easy to travel here, but in Africa. But you know, Kenya is already opening the way. I mean, leading in the way, and they're opening their borders to everyone. But then, you know, you're talking about your boarding school experience.
I knew you were going to go back.
So I was gonna go back there, right?
Yes.
You know me too well. You know me too well. You know, so I did 6 years in a boarding school as well. So I feel your pain. And you know I was gonna do this as well.
I feel your pain through him as well.
Sade,
he talks about it every time.
Sade did 1 year in boarding school.
Yes,
she ran away from boarding school.
I was too much for me.
It was too much.
It was too much. It was too much. So kudos to you both. You survived.
Yes.
No.
I did probably 2.5 years. 2.5 years.
Okay.
Boarding.
Yeah,
So
I
was
mean,
that like you joined? Sorry, Enoch. Did you join at some point or?
Yeah, so we do like 8 to 12, grade 8. So grade 8 and 9 and half of grade 10, I was in Zambia in boarding school.
Okay.
So we do exams. School is intense. We do exams in grade 9. So your second year of high school, you're sitting exams to decide if you're going to stay in the school.
Okay.
So I passed, woohoo! And then grade 10, halfway through, after doing all the hard work, we moved to Scotland. And then I came into third year of high school. So I came a year back because of my age. So I did an extra year of high school, basically, just because.
Okay.
I know.
Such pain.
I know.
Oh yeah, you're going to ask about funding and money.
Yes, because well, as we all know, all good deeds costs money.
They
money,
do.
Money.
They
so
do.
How have you found the funding part of it so far? How have you found the funding part? Like, I'm thinking of it right there.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So how's it been?
Good.
So
Very, very, very difficult. I knew it was going to be difficult. I didn't realize it was going to be this hard. And I think I've learned to see the charity from the perspective of, because you know, when it's your baby, you're like, this is the most amazing thing ever. I want you to give to me. So somebody said to me, like, just try and see it from a perspective of an outsider. Like, if you're a trustee of a foundation that gives money, how do they see Restored Up Zambia? And it was very helpful. Like, you would do amazing work, but then it's like, okay, you are a religious, because we're in a secular country right now. You're a religious organization dealing with abuse in the church in the global south, in a country that is high up on the list on money laundering, and you're 2 years old. That's your charity. That's your
your reality.
Yeah, that's your reality. So look at it from like a funder's perspective or whatever. You know, there's like 5 risk factors there, and very high with each one. So I stopped taking it personal because the rejections we're getting, I was just like, how? Like, clearly, like, you know, it's a very unique thing. Like, you know, we're doing something that people don't want to do. Like, come on, can you not see it? So that's been challenging. And what I've been trying to do is, okay, how do we broaden? Because we're going with funding applications for grants. Then we're trying to get individuals to donate.
Okay.
And it just has been like, just not going anywhere. So this year we have like actually spent money. So it's like, you know, you need to spend money to make money. We're actually starting to spend money on fundraising. I don't know if it's going to work. I hope it does. So I got somebody to help me with the funding applications, for example, because I hate writing. I love talking. See, if the funding applications were like this, oh my goodness, I feel like we would get like, I would be lying in the money, right? So I was like, this takes me so long. I think I just need help. So we've got somebody now doing that. And see, when she writes stuff, I'm like, she gets, because we'll talk and then I'll share the concept and then she'll put it on paper and I'm like, yes, that's what I meant.
That's it.
That's it. So she's been brilliant. So we'll see the outcome of that. And then we've got some fundraisers coming up. So we've got one in Glasgow actually on the 4th of May, to find people who get the vision, because if you don't get it, you're like, oh, okay, good luck. You know, so people get the vision that can support and give regularly. And then we're also like looking on the Zambian end as well. So this is from Scotland, like funding applications and individuals. That's mostly what's sustaining the work right now. So we've been trying to like, can we get the Zambian charities or Restored Up Zambia itself to take ownership of that? and looking for opportunities for funding within Zambia itself. And that's also been interestingly challenging. So there's not a culture of giving and like regular giving in the way that, we've got the however many people are giving regular standing orders. So you don't have that culture. And then the funding applications make you jump through hoops, like a 40-page application. What's your blood type? Like, it's just nuts. So
Blood type,
like so many unnecessary questions. And I'm just like, what is... So that's been eye-opening. So if you're listening to this and you're like, that is a great cause. So the Scottish Partner Charity would be the best one to give through. So it's Restored Hope Zambia UK. Please get in touch if you want to volunteer and you're like, I don't have money but I'll help, I'll volunteer, socials, whatever. That would be great, because we are throwing everything at the kitchen sink at it because we think it's a great cause. So we'll see the outcome of that, but we're not there yet, definitely not.
Fantastic. I mean, not fantastic, but
not having money part, but like
no, fantastic, because I was going to share an idea around maybe you've explored it around maybe approaching churches in Scotland.
That's also part, so they also so funding comes from churches, trust applications and individual donations at the moment.
No, I mean, I don't even mean funding application with churches. I mean just approaching them, say, we're doing this amazing stuff, give us 500 quid, something less official, stuff like that. So it's more, it's gonna be a quick yes or no, or you know what, we don't have a lot of money, but you know what, take 200 quid, 100 quid, and then if you get a few 100, 200, it keeps you going.
I'm just thinking, how is that going to be perceived in churches when you go when you tell them about what you do?
So that's what I was about to say. So I've when I've tried to explore that, because of my theology training and stuff, got lots of connections with churches. It's actually you don't get I call it polite indifference, because it seems so far away and because it's such a niche thing and something that makes people, like, if I was doing like an orphanage or like with little kids, with the runny noses, people would be like, that's great,
put the picture up.
Put the kids up, like everything,
but there's no picture to represent.
You can't. So a lot of I've noticed, because I've done other stuff like Bible training, whatever, evangelism, and people are like, come talk. And then when I say, hey, remember me, can I come? They're like, oh, okay, I'll ask. Like, it's not a no, but you can tell it's a no. They're just scared to say no. So like, just tell me no, it's fine. So there's actually more of a, I don't know if this is, I've not, so that's mostly white majority churches actually. So ones that would give to justice related things in other areas. They're like, I've not tried with more the black church or African churches. I don't know what the response would be, if it would be similar or if they would be like, so but
they'll probably think you're going to attack our people.
So exactly. To put it like
so it's a tricky one to navigate. It's a tricky one to navigate.
I know you're a very brilliant person, so you figure out a way, you keep thinking, and hopefully from these conversations you have with people, people keep giving you different ideas. Some will work, some may not work, and hopefully you find some people as well that will actually help come raise funds and things like that. So for someone listening to everything you said so far, and who has been sitting with an idea of, I would like to start something back in Congo or Ghana or wherever, what advice do you give them around just getting started?
I think start having conversations with purpose. So instead of just talking about it with your friends and be like, I have this idea, start thinking, how can I start implementing this idea? So what is the cause that you've got? So maybe, for example, is learning difficulties or learning disabilities. What would it take to do that? You might need to get perspective from people on the ground on what's the context, where are the gaps, because you might have an idea that is somebody's already doing it, they just don't have a good website. So you need to know, is there actually an appetite for that or a need for
almost
that?
Like market research in business context.
So you're fine, because it might, and something that I would have done differently with sort of Zambia anyway, spend some time just learning. Because you might have an idea, you're like, I've got a thing in the UK, I want to implement it there, but the Western way of doing it might not work on the ground, and there might be a reason why that thing isn't working, in the way that you. So for example, with our work, we do safeguarding training. So like, how do you prevent abuse? You know, the way that works here is, if you got safeguarding issue, phone 999. 999 don't show up. Like, they're like, you know, give us transport money. Like, they're not gonna, you know what I mean? So how do you do safeguarding when the structures aren't there? So then, you know, that's work. So I would say have those conversations and just have a rough timeline. It doesn't mean you have to stick to it, but I had a rough timeline. Okay, by this time I'll do the constitution, and then you've got something to work towards. So then what do I need to do the constitution? I might need help from this and the other. Even if the timelines, you know, space out a little bit, at least because if you don't do that, then it will always be something difficult, and you'll always procrastinate, and you always be like, I can't do this now.
Okay.
But it's okay if you fail as well. I just wanted to say that, because sometimes you think, I haven't done it the way I wanted, or it's not turned out the way I want. Just, you've tried, you will learn from it. It might actually help creating something else in the future.
Speaking of learning, actually, what life lessons do you think you want to leave with us or share with us, just so our listeners can just more for our listeners and also for the next person we're bringing on?
Yeah, so it's more we do this thing where we get our guests to share a life lesson, and we share that with the next guest. So once we share yours, we share the previous guest's life lessons with you.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, I think I've learned the value of networking, and especially using online platforms like LinkedIn. So a friend shared with me today, like, you know, sometimes it feels cringe doing stuff on LinkedIn, right? You know, it just feels like secondhand embarrassment type things, right? You're like, oh, do I have to, like, and you see, and you're like, oh. So like, just get over that. Like, just get over yourself with regards to that. Like, just go for it, because I have learned so much just by following, not even like having necessarily interactions with them, just by following certain people on LinkedIn. I found foundations I didn't know about, opportunities I didn't know about, training I didn't know about, some of the stuff I'm talking about that I've learned about, like how to do things well and communities that I found through that. So it doesn't have to be physical. People think networking, you're always thinking like physical people and rooms. It can also just be like communities that you see online, because LinkedIn is, don't just be on Facebook all the time. Like, that professional network, I would say has been invaluable to me in a way that I didn't even, I mean, I didn't know what my LinkedIn password was for a very long time. So this has just been the last 2 years. I've been like, oh, okay, this is actually really useful. I think I found out about Black Scottish Adventure, like so many things. And I've met people through that have helped, you know what I mean? So just it's get on LinkedIn.
It's interesting that connection you said, you know, just like with the guest we had the last time, he was sharing around how he went to one of the adventures, the Black Scottish Adventures. He met someone, that person gave him an advice, he took it, and because of that he was able to get to speak to his employer, and was able to get sponsorship or work visa, which is a big deal for an immigrant. So these conversations and being out there, I know you said networking is not about physical, but the physical and the non-physical, just basically chatting to people, connecting with people.
They kind of intertwine with each other, and they're like, you follow up from the physical with the like, okay, let's follow each other, and like, so
fantastic. And so, I mean, you've shared a bit around sort of where you guys have gotten to, some of the challenges you faced, and with regards to the work you're doing in Zambia, and you know, Sade asked earlier if you've got people that maybe not enemies, but people that particularly don't oppose what you do. I'm thinking about to frame this.
I wish I could help you.
Yeah. So how are you? I mean, have you come across a really serious challenge so far? And if so, how have you overcome it as an organization?
Yeah, I think the challenge is the systems. And the non-existent systems for dealing. First of all, the complexity of the cases. And the systems aren't there in a way that they are in the UK. I think, you know, so for example, just to give you an example, somebody might literally not have transport money to get to you. So you've got your premises there and, you know, they literally can't get to you. You've got your phone number, they literally can't, you know what I mean? And even if they do get to you, just being able to walk into a police station and successfully report, you know, the offense. So it's some of those, like the fear factor is our biggest, it's almost the biggest barrier. Like we've not even had as many like people being like, why are you doing this? It's for the survivors themselves, those barriers of like, they're that scared, they're that terrified, and just breaking that and becoming trustworthy and being like, we're not gonna snitch on you, we're confidential. Yes, we're a Christian organization, but we don't belong to a church. Like that's actually been the biggest barrier. So it's slowly changing because we're starting to share survivor stories more. So they're like, okay, these people are for us. They're not gonna. It's not a trap. So that's been I think one of the things that because that's your vision as an organization, and then it's like, but if the survivors can't get to you, or if they're even too scared to get to you, then how do you even deal with that? The other challenge has been volunteers and the difficulty of running an organization. It's mostly volunteer run with volunteers in Zambia, believe it or not, because people can't afford to volunteer. So they enthusiastically volunteer and they're like, woohoo, yes. And you do all the induction and you do all the hard work, all the recruitment that I'm sure you're familiar with, all the work that goes into recruitment and vetting, because there's no sex offenders register. So we have to like vet manually. I literally go into people's Twitters to see what they've liked on Twitter. Like, because you're dealing with vulnerable people. There's no register or anything. You can vet people. So I'm just like, what have you liked on Twitter and on Facebook? Like that will give me like, so you vet, you do all of that, you do the training because it's a lot to learn. And then, they don't have a job. So they're volunteering, hoping that they'll maybe get a job. And then so they leave, after 3 months. I'm like, okay, I'm done. So I've actually said to the trustees, I'm done. We're not recruiting any more volunteers. We're just going to pay people. If we don't have money, then that's it. We're done. So it's very hard because it's not people are doing it on purpose. They actually can't afford to volunteer. So I volunteered when I was a student. Students there, if they even have time, like school is that intense. And if you're not in school, maybe you're doing a little side job to pay. You don't have time to volunteer unless the volunteering is not really volunteering and you're getting a little something. You might be retired, but you still need a side hustle to survive because it's not like you've got a step pension and benefits or whatever. So actually, like running a small organization that is going to be reliant on volunteers is a huge challenge in Zambia because of some of those factors.
It is everywhere. It is everywhere, and I've faced it myself in my time. And so the life lesson that the previous guests left, and maybe you find it useful, is he said, it's a quote from Denzel Washington, that if you hang around a barber shop long enough, eventually you get a haircut. So what that means is if you're like persistent enough, if you keep bashing, maybe you need it because you need a bit of persistence because currently you're getting a lot of pushback. So just keep going until you get a break. And that break in that instance is that haircut. So hopefully you hang around enough to get that haircut because that haircut
that's encouraging actually, because some days you're like,
that was perfect. That's perfect. And the one you've shared is for our next listener was
I was talking about the importance of networking.
Perfect.
For learning and also.
So we're running out of time, so I'll just quickly speed through this. So for those listening to us today that think I'd like to connect with Inonge or I'd like to connect with the charity, how can they connect?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Inonge Siluka. You can also follow their charities, both of them, on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So Restored Hope Zambia and Restored Hope Zambia UK.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I believe that's the end.
Yes, that's it. It's been such an amazing time with you, Inonge. Honestly, you're doing an amazing thing.
Thank you.
You're truly inspirational, because I think this is one of those ones. A lot of the times when I speak to people on this show, it's people that are doing things, not to sound bad for them, which is okay because you're trying to get a career for yourself. You're trying to start a business for yourself. So I think you're the first person we've spoken to that is doing something for others, and not just doing it at great expense as well. And when I say expense, I just don't mean financial. I mean mental, well-being, time, because time, you can't buy time back. So from all of us here on this show, and I'm sure from humanhood, we say a massive thank you to you. Hopefully you hang around the barber shop long enough to get that haircut. And that is the end of the show today. Thank you all for joining us.
Listeners,
Absolutely. Thank you, Sade.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inonge.
Thank you.
Until next time, keep living, and thank you very much.
Bye.